We were just talking about what Dan had brought up, and he had said about blaming the unions. And I'm going to tell you that if all they do in Wisconsin is address this one issue, that's not going to fix Wisconsin. There's a whole lot of other things that need to get started. It's just everybody needs to realize that we're not in the economy we were in 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
Forget all that. You know what?
What do you mean forget all that?
No,
wait a minute. No, I think you sometimes are missing this point.
But it's still an issue.
Wait. But I think the point that I'm trying to make that maybe you're not hearing me make is that this is a matter of everybody has to take a step back together for us to eventually move forward again. And there can be no sacred cows. Not the unions, not the banks, not anybody. And everyone keeps going, cut, just not my stuff. And we got to stop doing that, just not my stuff.
It's not about cutting. It's about the fact is what's fair. If you're an electrician, and I've said this a dozen times, if you're an electrician and you're working at Edwards' electrical company, and I'm making $30 an hour and $8 in fringe, and then Thomas is working for the state of Illinois, at some point we should be equal. We should be making the same amount of compensation. And the state is not. The state is making in Illinois, it's making 25% more than their counterparts on the outside.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is once you get to that parity and you're about equal or you're damn close to being equal, not 25% away,
right.
Then you got a good argument. Then all this other stuff, then I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is that this is one piece of this big equation that's going on right now, and if all the government intends to do, or all the conservatives intend to do, is to ratchet back the unions and not address anything else, then it's a waste of time. I'm saying it needs to be done across the board, and I bring up that when we were at a party after the elections in November, there was someone from the library and someone from the JUCO both sitting there talking about how we need to be fiscally conservative, but there was nothing more to cut from the JUCO budget and nothing more to cut from the library budget. And that's the whole thing. Everyone goes, we need to be more responsible. Just don't take away my sacred cow. And there needs to be no sacred cows.
Tony Perwinkle, President Perwinkle, came onto the board, and she told the sheriff, and she told the state's attorney, you're going to cut this out of your budget. And the sheriff tried for a little bit to throw fear. Oh, my gosh, prisoners are going to be running around and all these other things. And they sat down and they worked it out. And you know what? She got the Cook County budget in line. That's it. Lay off 1,000 people, but you know what? This is the way it is.
And that is the type of thing that needs to be done. And there are no sacred cows. And that's where Dan's argument that they're attacking the worker. They're not attacking the worker. I don't know if he might be with us. They're not attacking the worker. They're saying across the board we need to figure this out and we need to cut waste. Did you see the thing today that I can't remember? It wasn't the CBOE. It was something else. They came back and they found $500 billion in waste in the budget, where because there are so many, like there might be one issue and there's 20 different agencies that all have some responsibility with all the overlap. And it's like, and the same thing we've always said is before you raise my taxes, spend the money you're getting wisely. And then if you've proven that you're spending our money wisely and you need to raise our taxes, fine. But don't raise our taxes to cover your inefficiency and raise our taxes because you're not doing your job.
Where's Dan? Are you online, Dan?
Yeah, I'm here. No,
what do you want to say?
What I wanted to get to is you've got those with the influence, the political influence, who have the millions. And, let's put it in actual numbers, billions of dollars that they provide congressmen and state reps, state senators, all the way up and down the board, where they have done such an outstanding job of once again dividing the American public so that we're fighting each other instead of seeing who it is that's making money hand over fist at the expense of the rest of us.
What does he have to do
with the union? Now we've got the union guys versus the anti-union, the non-union people. All the while, these people who have, and I think you mentioned it before, bought and sold these guys, these elected officials, and they're making money again, hand over fist. Has there been one bank executive in all of this mess, whether it's been Goldman Sachs, or any of them, that have been put in jail?
Why do you need a pound of flesh?
Well,
what is this
like I said,
Well, let me ask you a question, Dan.
Sure.
A couple of years ago, my business, I had over 100 employees. I was losing money left and right, hand over fist. So I ended up, in some people's views, laying off half of my staff. I looked at it like I saved half my staff's jobs, because had I continued on the path I was going, the company was going to be gone. It's just going to be gone. So now we cut those 50 people. I started to make a profit again. I've been able to grow my business and add to my staff. Am I an evil rich guy who was only concerned about my own profit? Or did I do what was fiscally necessary to save jobs and, make some money along the way?
Well, now this is the point I want to get to.
Wait. Answer that specific question. Am I a bad guy?
He's changing
the
the
subject.
subject.
You're not a bad guy.
Okay, that is what our government is saying that we need to do now. That the revenue side of the equation is out of whack. Our expenses are higher than our revenue. We need to find a way to bring it in line. And there can be no sacred cows. And for the unions to be like, hey, we have to have everything we had before. Who cares if the country's bankrupt? Just get more money from those evil corporations. Well,
now, from what I have been able to decipher from all of this, and I'm not the smartest person in the world, but as far as I understand it, what the governor wants to do is eliminate their collective bargaining rights.
Eliminate their ability to demand more than the revenue dictates. Yes.
But Dan, the governor represents the people of Wisconsin or the people of Illinois. He doesn't sit there and go negotiate. He doesn't sell out the people of Wisconsin.
And he's sitting there with a 65 to 70% poll rating on the things that he wants to do that people are supporting him.
He's the CEO of the state. He's supposed to look for ways for the taxpayers.
But once again, we have this situation that the select few have gotten us into this position of fighting each other instead of looking at who's actually been benefiting. Let me give you one piece of information that I got from...
All right, we're going to take that piece of information, and we're going to move on. So go ahead, Dan.
I think it was the New York Times did a study on IRS reports over the last 30 years. The top 10% of the people in this country I'm not going to say earned, I'm going to say took 50% of all of the wages earned in that time frame, and the top 100th of 1% of the people in this country own as much as the bottom 150 or 160 million people.
But
now, you've got and we have this the largest discrepancy from the richest to the poorest since 1917. This is what I'm getting at. We are so busy fighting each other. Oh, it's the union guy against the non-union guy. It's the anti-gun versus the pro-gun. Whatever issue it happens to be. They have done such a great job of keeping us fighting each other, we don't know who the real enemy is. That's my point.
And who's the real enemy, Dan?
Well, like I said, those with enough influence to where they can get legislation passed. Actually, they write the legislation, whether you're talking about the bankruptcy laws, whether
wait a minute.
Want to put in.
Okay, who wrote the stimulus bill? Who wrote the stimulus bill, Dan?
There were probably so many hands.
Dan, the Apollo Alliance wrote the stimulus bill. The stimulus bill was written by the Apollo Alliance. The Apollo Alliance is a conglomeration of unions. It's the SEIU and all the other unions. So, Dan, we're going to let you go. And although I do think there's some validity in what you say, I think that you're only looking at one side of the equation, and we need to look at all sides of the equation. Let's move along, though.
Like I said, the problem is, once again, those with the influence are taking the money right to their banks, and it's costing. Do not belittle the importance of unions like that, Dan. Thank you for your call.
Thanks.
Okay, let's move along. Because the unions are the ones who elected this current administration. But let's move along.
Yeah, but
I think Dan's point is valid, whether it be the union or the AARP or the big business or what have you. Somewhere along the line, I guess Dan does not believe he's the master of his own destiny. You and I are
Well,
self-employed business people with no educations who believe we're the masters of our own destiny.
Well,
So
I said this when I was with the Chicago Park District. I was there for 11 years. I think I told you this. I got a 50-cent an hour raise for a collective bargaining agreement. We got a 50-cent an hour raise. I didn't get a 50-cent an hour raise. 30 cents on that 50 cents, okay? 2/3 of it went to my local union for the health and welfare fund. And I went to the union meeting, and the president, Fosco, that was the guy who was the president, I said, well, I don't understand. Why am I giving 30 cents on my 50-cent raise? 50 cents is $1,000 a year. Well, I'm giving it to the union. And he says, goes in your health and welfare fund. I go, but I'm not in the health and welfare fund for the union. I'm in the Park District Health and Welfare Fund. He said, well, don't you care about your brothers on the outside? I says, no, I don't care about my brothers on the outside. I wonder how many unions are still getting money from the state people are going to this health and welfare fund. That was on top of dues. That wasn't my dues. That was the negotiated on that kind of thing. Again, if there's parity, if everybody's getting the same, then I'm cool with it. If you're getting the same amount of money on the inside and the outside, then it's okay. Well, that's not what's happening. And that message isn't getting out there.
See, I don't think they need to have the same, Tim. I would argue with you that I think that's part of our problem is everyone wants the same, but you should have the opportunity to earn the same, the opportunity to cut a deal. But when you start doing collective bargaining like that, it's gone to the point where they're too powerful.
And the other thing, we're both entrepreneurs. We both own our own business.
Right.
I work for a union. I know you work for companies. And you know what? When you work for a company, you got your paycheck. Mm-hmm. Every week or every 2 weeks, you got your paycheck. Now we start going into businesses. We're going to the banks, and the banks are going, well, Mr. Elenz, Mr. Edwards, we need collateral, so we're taking your house if you don't pay back this loan.
Right.
Oh, and by the way, we made payroll Friday. Your bookkeeper's coming in and saying, made payroll Friday. Paul, guess what? We didn't have enough money to pay you. That doesn't happen in the unions. Nope. That happens in the private sector, where we've got to go out and we have to get creative financing, and we've got to figure out a way to carry. So there's still sometimes I don't get a check. Now, I'm not saying they're going to have a benefit for me anytime soon. But, there's a lot of stresses that go, and when we create jobs and we create business and we bring revenues in, they tax us.
Well, I tell you, there was a year that my company lost just oodles and oodles of money. And in that same year, there was $394,000 in tax revenue generated out of my company between payroll tax, FICA, Social Security, licensing, all that stuff, for me to lose money. For me not to make money, the government still made $394,000. And sometimes I think this is lost on people, that they just really don't understand that, if I would have had a second bad year like that, I'd be completely broke. There'd be no pension check coming to me. There's no security there. When people talk about, the rich, as Dan likes to seem to point out, they also got to realize that every single person in this country has the opportunity to be rich. If they are smart enough, they work hard enough, they get a little lucky, and they're willing to take risks.
I beg to differ with you. Everybody that lives in this country is rich. We are
comparatively,
rich.
Yes.
Yeah, comparatively to the rest of the world, we're in the top 1%. Did you ever go to this Elgin library over here? Have you ever been over to this library?
Yeah.
You know what? The taxpayers own that library. They own that. You know what? They own the streets out here. They own the streets. I mean, we are rich here. We just don't appreciate it. We don't get grateful. We want more. We want more. We want more. It is interesting because I was eavesdropping on the mayor. He was doing an interview. I was listening a little bit, and he was saying, the best thing about the Elgin, the council, and I hope he's not mad at me for saying this, but he says, nobody's ever sitting there going, what about my neighborhood? What about my district? He says, when the council people meet in Elgin, they talk about what's the best thing for Elgin. He was doing an interview, and I happened to be sitting in the restaurant. And that's what it's really supposed to be about. But it's not. The unions are saying, gimme, 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 gimme. Did you know one more thought? I think maybe we should finish up with the Middle East.
Yeah.
Because I know you got a lot of stuff to say about that one. And I didn't agree with you 2 weeks ago when you started all that rhetoric. I'm starting to agree with you.
I started that rhetoric years ago.
So are you pro-Middle East or anti-Middle East? That's what I want to know.
What do you mean?
What does that mean? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. What does that mean?
Do you think we should destroy the Middle East and not worry about it, or leave it alone?
What do you mean destroy it?
Nuclear bombs.
Well, no, we'd be more humane. We use neutron bombs.
Neutron bombs.
That only kills people.
That way we can keep the oil well.
Keep the oil. That's right. Because last week you were pro-Gaddafi. Just let you know.
I was.
He was.
Yeah, he was.
Why was he pro-Gaddafi?
He just thought
I was not pro-Gaddafi. I think I said Ann Moeller was pro-Gaddafi.
We have it on tape. Can we play that back?
Oh, let's run it here.
I think I said Ann Moeller was pro-Gaddafi, actually.
Well, you've got a Gaddafi bobblehead. That's what I thought you were pro-Gaddafi. So,
moving to the Middle East.
And you talking about Detroit, or are you talking about the Middle East?
Yeah, no, Indiana and Ohio.
Oh, okay.
No, the Middle East. It's very interesting what's going on there, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity if the people of those countries actually are able to cobble together some sort of form of democracy where their voices are heard. My greatest fear.
Why do people have to have democracy? Why? Because we, 310 million people out of 7 billion people, why does the Middle East have to have democracy? We are a small speck of sand on a big beach. Where else is there really democracy?
What country has the greatest freedoms and the greatest wealth, and the greatest opportunity?
The United States.
Well, that's why I think democracy should be everywhere.
Okay.
Because I think that gives people the opportunity.
Maybe some people don't want democracy. Do you think unions want democracy?
Because
no. Look, you know what? I tell you real quick.
Union members, maybe.
Let me jump back real quick, and then you could shut me up. But give me 20 seconds.
Okay.
So let me understand this. We had an election in Wisconsin, and the votes were counted, and we elected a Senate and a legislator. And now that the legislator's in place and they've been sworn in and they're going to carry out what they were elected to do, we don't like it, so we're going to go into the state capitol and shut it down. Is that democracy?
It's the minority of the people, and I think everyone has the right to protest, and I think the fact that those people are out speaking is their absolute right. I'm glad to see them doing it. But I also think that they need to, just like, the Tea Partiers who sat up and said, hey, we think this health care is wrong. You know what? They passed it anyway. We got to swallow it. We got to deal with it. Or we have to elect people who will try to repeal it. And I think these protests, and I find that the Democrats in Wisconsin who refuse to show up so that there's no quorum are terrible. I think that even through all the stuff that was going on with the Republicans in Washington, they showed up. They didn't block anything. They just voted against it, which is what they're supposed to do.
So you elected these people. So now we have in the Middle East, we've had a guy who's been there for 42 years.
Right.
42 years, the country's been running pretty well. Well, wait a minute now. Wait before you give me 10 seconds. We have an embassy there. They are recognized by the UN. They are recognized by the rest of the world. So all of a sudden, because a bunch of people go out on the street and they say we don't want this guy anymore, we go Muammar who?
It's a complicated issue. But what we have to look at there is that the people who are coming out on the street, there really haven't been true, real elections there. So the people,
but why did we recognize them in the UN after he
because it was
blew up?
Because it was financially to the best interest of the United States. And I think when this all started happening, and I said when we talked about Mubarak, I said, hey, why did our president not call for Ahmadinejad to leave, but tell our ally Mubarak? And I immediately there I said, although I'm going to tell you, I don't believe we should be allied with despots. And
yeah, you did say that. I remember.
I don't believe we should be.
Yep.
So I am very hopeful that what happens in the Middle East is that people's voices get heard. My greatest fear, though, is that you will come with a different tyrant, a different dictator, and that they will be much more radicalized, whoever takes control, and be much more like Ahmadinejad, who is going to be a true enemy of the United States.
Isn't that always the risk in any election, or any non-free election, or any coup that happens, whether it's Latin America or Africa?
You know what? If it's a true election, that's fine. But I'm afraid it's just going to be one more dictator taking over, and that's scary.
I mean, unless I'm missing it here, Wisconsin, we had a free election in Wisconsin.
Yeah,
and they elected who they wanted to represent them, and it's an overwhelming majority.
True.
I mean, it wasn't like 1 or 2 votes.
They had free elections in California. And they still had a recall on the governor.
Well, that was the Constitution said that they could have recalls.
Right. And I guess the Wisconsin
law is.
I'm not saying people shouldn't recall Governor Walker, but
what do you think?
But still, 60 to 70% of the people in Wisconsin are supporting what he's doing.
Well,
and don't forget the
people have spoken in November. They spoke.
Right.
The people in November said we're electing the governor. They gave him the House and they gave him the Senate.
Right.
I mean, do you realize that they have 19 Republican senators? They need 17 to pass something. The reason that they can't pass it is because they have to have 20 there. So they have 2 votes more than they need to pass this thing. And what are they doing? They're shutting down the government. You have school teachers, you have doctors that have little booths set up giving sick notes for the school teachers that aren't teaching the kids. They had an article I read the other day about bus drivers that weren't taking people for dialysis. They were out there I'm sorry, that was in Ohio. That wasn't in Wisconsin. So, again, when you talk about democracy, I don't like the way the election turned out, so I'm going to go shut down the government. And that's exactly what's going on in Wisconsin.
Well, I guess maybe they took a page out of Texas when Texas had they were going to reorganize the Texas the state Senate. I think there was Republican state senators that flew out of Texas, and they couldn't pass until they got back.
And that's wrong too. I don't care. Whenever you are circumventing the will of the people, it's wrong.
But it gets nationwide exposure, which is, I guess, is what the senators did. Whether it's Indiana, whether it's Wisconsin, I'm not agreeing with it or disagreeing with it. I'm just saying it was one way of saying this is, obviously the state senators that left truly believe that this is the only solution they could do for stopping or at least stalling with the union.
But that's not their job to stop and stall. Their job is to go and vote what their constituency asks them to do, and it's not their job to stop the will of the majority. It's just not.
Well, apparently they feel differently.
Because really, this is what I hear when you come right down to it with the unions. What they're saying is we're getting certain things for free right now. In order for us to continue to get it free, everyone else in the state, we're going to raise your state income tax so that we can pay for what I'm getting for free. So in the meantime, while you're still paying for your stuff, pay for mine too. And people don't want to hear that. They're like, oh, but we agreed to this with the union. Well, once again, I have kids. If I agree to an allowance with them and I can't meet that agreement, guess what, kids? We're renegotiating.
Yeah, but you know what? This is you want to live by the sword, die by the sword. The Democratic Party has accepted tons of money from the union. The union has supported them. They had an election in November. They lost.
Right.
Now there's a new sheriff in town, and the new sheriff said, we're changing the rules of the game. Mm-hmm. The people of Wisconsin, you can't it doesn't matter what the polls are today. Right. What matters is that this guy is in for 4 years. The senators and the reps
got about a minute and a half
years.
left here.
All right.
And if enough people agree with the union people, they'll have another election and they can get all that back.
They can, absolutely, if it doesn't work out. Hey, you know what I want to mention to our people here? Our website, leftrightandyou.com. Please visit us, email us, tell us what your thoughts are. Facebook, leftrightandyou.com. We are rebroadcasted on television. We are on 5 hours twice a day now.
Okay.
I was watching it last night. We do have real commercials, too. Thank you, Don Tanis. It's WPVN, channel 24.3. If you have an antenna, you get it. And check us out on YouTube.
Yeah, so, lively debate, and it was interesting.
Aren't you glad our guest didn't show up today?
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say glad, but yeah, I could have talked about this for another couple hours. We didn't even get to the Middle East.
We'll talk about it next week.
Next week, what guest are we not going to have on?
Who's on next week?
I don't know. I've got it here somewhere. Hopefully, we'll have someone on next week. If not, you're just with me and Tim.
We have Trish Powell on next week.
Awesome.
Next week, President Obama will not show up. Just to let you know.
He was invited.